Welcome to Kaiser Watch with John Kaiser. I'm your host, Jim Goddard. John, welcome back to the show. What's coming up today?
Jim, this is going to be a shorter episode because later this afternoon I'm heading to Vancouver to participate in the Metals Investor Forum, which runs on September 22nd to 23rd. So I'm going to talk a bit about that, and then I'll give a brief update on what's happening in the James Bay Lithium Great Canadian Area play.
So what do you plan to talk about at the Metals Investors Forum in Vancouver, BC?
I managed to get only one of my covered companies to participate in my session, which is on Saturday afternoon. That is Silver Range Resources, Mike Power's prospect generator. I talked about them in June as part of my Tonopah Adventure series. It's going to be really interesting to see what sort of turnout we get. This market just keeps getting more and more bummed out. The theme of my talk is going to be yellow and white gold exploration. Right now, we're still seeing lithium prices decline as China scales back its attempts to scale back its production of electric vehicles, and gold kind of disappoints people. It managed to claw its way back above 1,900 in the past few days, but it's still short of that $2,000 ceiling, which we would like to become the base. So with lithium carbonate prices, we don't really expect them to increase. We don't need it. What we don't need is for them to drop below $5 a pound, because then the world's just not going to develop any of these pegmatite lithium deposits that are needed for 600% expansion by 2030, perhaps 1,200% by 2035 if Toyota's solid-state battery is real. So, and with gold, we've been waiting forever for the real price to go up significantly. It is about 30-40% above 1980, $400 gold in terms of real price, but that really doesn't seem to capture the market out there. So the focus is on finding something that works with the projects that are in the ground, that with the metal prices that we have. And Silver Range Resources, what I like about their focus is they originally started up in northern Canada, but shortly after Mike Power joined Silver Range, which is part of the Strategic Metals group of companies, he pivoted to the southwestern United States, Nevada and Arizona in particular. And what he is interested in is high-grade deposits. And he's interested in ones that might have a tiny showing that was never really developed. And epithermal exploration, it kind of fell by the wayside when the Carlin deposits came on stream in the 1980s, dominated Nevada gold production. The gold move up to $400 level during the 70s, and heap leaching helped make these low-grade oxide epithermal systems at surface open pitable, but most of that's been done. There hasn't been a huge amount of exploration for deeper underground epithermal high-grade systems, the Comstocks of the world. And this is what Mike Power is looking for. And because we've had maybe 10, 15 years of very minimal exploration, there's kind of a technology gap with these epithermal systems, and he goes into the archives, finds all these former showings and workings, checks them out, collects contemporary information, in particular alteration envelopes. Some of these systems, they have glory holes on them, and then they petered out, and the prospectors gave up and moved on. But these may be just tips of icebergs, and Silver Range's approach is to look at the bigger geological context and see if there is a system present that's large enough to potentially hide a major concentration in some vein type structures. So he's assembled about 28 such projects in Nevada and Arizona. 6 of them are farmed out, and he's attracting private companies, and it isn't just the kind that plan to go rent the property, Canadian companies, a CSE company that wants to pretend to do some work on a project and then move on to other stories. No, these are investors, groups, Australians, Americans, who actually get this idea that there could be a revival of underground gold mining in southwestern United States, and they're using Silver Range as a prospect generator to come up with these ideas, and then he farms them out to them, sometimes 100% keeps a royalty and gets shares in the company. Other times he keeps a percentage. So he's following that track of other prospect generator juniors such as Eagle Plains Resources, which is currently a favorite. And Silver Range is my southwestern United States favorite prospect generator farm out junior. In terms of macro talk, I'm going to update people on the lithium story, how hunting for these pegmatites really is the game to play because of the high value of pegmatite that's outcropping at surface. I'm a little bummed that none of my companies that I follow in the lithium sector were able to come to this Metals Investor Forum session. However, there is a company, this is one that Gwen Preston has recommended, Targa Exploration Corp, which in the past year has assembled lithium pegmatite projects in Saskatchewan, in Manitoba, in Ontario, no, not Ontario, in Quebec, both in Nunavik up top in the northern part from Sean Ryan, and in the area just south of the Corvette project of Patriot Battery Metals. And they also have project in southeastern Quebec. So this is a junior that is pretty diversified, and I'm going to sit down with Cameron Timstra and find out more about what they're doing. Interestingly, the Manitoba and the James Bay projects came from Kenorland, another prospect generator farm-out company that kind of does the opposite of what Silver Range does. It looks at big picture geological contexts, entire districts, and does enough work to justify claiming that there's something there to be found, and then stakes the very large area and then sells the conceptual story with the help of all this peripheral information to majors. And it has secured a number of farm-outs. In the case of the James Bay region, they basically sold 100% of these projects for stock and a royalty. So it's going to be an interesting show, a lithium company with Canadian focus to check out, and of course Silver Range Resources to introduce the audience that shows up for my presentation on Saturday afternoon. And the conference admission is free, but you need to register in advance in order to get in. So I recommend people go do that. They can go to my site and click on the link and register so that they can show up and watch the presentation and the panel discussion that's afterwards in the Saturday afternoon.
Is the James Bay Lithium Index waking up yet?
The James Bay Lithium Index has declined slightly from last Friday when we talked about it. It's had several down days. It's down 7.8% from its August 1st initiation date. There's been news from several groups that is encouraging, though we're not seeing significant market response. On Monday, Critical Elements reported that it had received a mining lease under the Quebec Act, which is one of the last milestones needed in order to develop the Rose project. They published an update or a feasibility study update for the project, which came up with a $2.2 billion net present after-tax net present value at 8% with a 65.7% internal rate of return. The market's only pricing it at $193 million Canadian right now. And the reason is that their average grade is between 0.8 and 0.9% lithium oxide, which isn't in that 1 to 2% range where the market feels comfortable that the project will survive downwards pressure. But the stock has rebounded nicely from its $1.40 low about a couple months ago. And it is one of our KRO favorites for 2023. What I particularly like is that after spending nearly a decade focused primarily on the main pegmatite body, which was discovered decades ago, they are now taking a broader look at the project, and they have multiple crews out there doing prospecting, and they're probably looked at what Allkem did with its Galaxy Sear project, which had its resource, and then they did drilling over the past year and discovered that the system actually jogs to the northwest, where it has a better grade and is open. So I think the Rose project of Critical Elements, it could end up being re-rated substantially if there are new boots on the ground within this established, lithium pegmatite bearing area come up with newer and better pegmatite targets that can become the focus for exploration, even while they figure out how to fund construction of the Rose project. Another development that's encouraging is last week we talked about Midland exploration, and this week they reported that they have found outcropping pegmatite on the Galinee project, which is to the east of Winsome's Andina project. Within that same sort of amphibolite contact, they have found outcrops similar. They are planning to drill in 2023. At the moment, they're sort of in a situation like Brunswick with the Mirage project. They're trying to figure out the lateral extent of these dikes which outcrop. They're only several meters wide, but they're spodumene bearing. This has been confirmed, and they're setting the stage for a drill program sometime in October. And of course, even if it snows there, if you know where your drill holes are supposed to go, it doesn't matter that there's snow. So even if there is an early onset for winter that shuts down boots on the ground prospecting, Rio Tinto will be drilling holes into the Galinee project, in which Midland nets a 30%. Did the market react too much to it? Well, it's still in that 55-60 cent range, but that's because at that price and the number of shares out, the implied project value is already $160 million. So they need to flesh it out, make it bigger before the market starts to push a higher valuation on it. And as I mentioned with Critical Elements, they are carrying only $193 million valuation for a project that has a $2.1 billion NPV. The market maybe doesn't like that they're using $2,200 a ton for spodumene concentrate, whereas the price right now is about $2,900 and sinking. But again, you can't have these prices go too much lower, or they'll just stop producing it. So I think their price is reasonable, and Critical Elements, I think, stands to benefit with an upward price rating. And Midland, that, again, a prospect generator farm out junior. It's got all those other things that I talked about last week going for it. This is one to buy if you're worried about what's coming up. One company that's in the James Bay region that staked a very large and acquired 54,000 hectare land package, which runs parallel to the Corvette trend. To the north is Champion Electric, and they put out a disappointing news release this week. They got their boots back on the ground on August 3rd or so, they said, and presumably they've done lots of prospecting. But all they've had to report since then is that they are now doing a LiDAR survey, or have done a LiDAR survey on the rest of the property. They did one in 2022, which helped highlight potential places where spodumene pegmatite outcrop is present. And that covered all the sort of amphibolite metavolcanic rock packages within that overall land package. And it's quite disappointing not to hear that they found outcrop that they're awaiting results on, that their XRF or Lipscon has confirmed as being lithium bearing. And they say as soon as we will get our boots back onto the ground to follow up with this new what this new LiDAR survey has revealed. So this is an example of a company that's not likely to be in a position to drill anything in the first quarter unless they find an outcrop on that less prospective part of the land package than the one that they initially focused on. And that's a problem for this company because it has a very large overhang of warrants between 10 and 15 cents that don't expire until June 2024. To chew through that, one is going to have a solid target worth drilling in the first quarter of next year. So, the boots on the ground, we all have high expectations. They go out there, they'll harvest low-hanging fruit, but sometimes the fruit isn't very low-hanging. You're going to have to look a lot harder to find it. It may be hidden way up in the branches of the tree, and that seems to be the predicament of Champion Electric from the work they've done so far this year.
John, can you remind us again when you're speaking at the Metals Forum in Vancouver?
The session begins at 1:30, I believe, and on Saturday afternoon. And Robert Sin will be speaking first. Then I will be speaking. Then Silver Range will be speaking. We'll have a short Q&A at the booth. And Mike Power and I have to disappear for the private Q&A that will get published later. And then I also need to do a Q&A with Cameron Timstra of Targa Exploration Corp. So that's the big window. Afterwards, the panel. And then there's the hanging out with the open bar and chatting with people and catching up on stuff. So I'll be available in the morning of the Saturday also, as well as Friday where I don't have any obligations. I'll be checking out some of the other companies that are present.
John, thank you so much for the update.
You're welcome, Jim.
I'm Jim Goddard. Comments made on Kaiser Watch are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as a recommendation to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at kaiserresearch.com.